I often make jokes of them and say, I am comfortable in my own skin no matter how far I've stretched it at times. But I know who I am and I don't try to be nobody else. And if that ain't good enough for you, too bad. But I can walk in any room knowing I'm going in as myself, and that'll just have to.
Over 3,000 songs, 100 million records sold, and 200 million books donated to children who needed them most. For 6 decades, Dolly Parton seemed unstoppable. Then, in May 2026, she cancelled her Las Vegas residency after dealing with dizziness linked to medication. At the same time, her immune system and digestive system were both struggling. She was also carrying deep personal grief after losing Carl Dean, her husband of 58 years, who passed away in March 2025. Dolly compared herself to an old classic car. She said her doctors raised the hood and found much more damage than expected. Engine, transmission, shocks, pistons, the whole works. Then she delivered a line that instantly grabbed attention everywhere. Because you know as well as I know, I cannot lose my spark. What is happening to Dolly Parton right now goes far beyond a simple health update. This is the moment one of country music's most resilient figures allows the world to see her vulnerability. How did she reach this point? And what is the price of giving everything for 60 straight years? To understand what Dolly is facing today, you have to look at where her story began. The woman now facing health struggles and heartbreak was shaped by a life where hardship was part of everyday reality. Dolly Rebecca Parton was born on January 19, 1946. In a tiny one-room cabin beside the Little Pigeon River in Locust Ridge, Tennessee. She was the fourth of 12 children. Her father, Robert Lee Parton, worked as a tobacco farmer and could not read or write. Her mother, Avie Lee, paid the doctor who delivered Dolly with a bag of cornmeal because that was all the family could spare. There was no electricity and no running water. The children shared beds and wore clothes made from flour sacks. Food was often scarce. Yet from that small cabin came a voice that would one day reach audiences around the world. Dolly found music early and never looked back. By age 7, she was singing at church. By 10, she had appeared on television in Knoxville. By 13, she recorded her first single, The Mountains Could Not Contain Her Dreams. The day after graduating high school in 1964, she packed one bag and boarded a bus to Nashville. She was just 18 years old. She had almost nothing when she arrived in Nashville, but she had all the determination she needed. Before we go any further, do you know who Dolly met on her very first day in the city? The answer surprises a lot of people. Stay with us. On that first day, Dolly stopped at a laundromat to wash her clothes. While she was there, a young man named Carl Thomas Dean walked in. He was 23 years old and she was 18. Later, Carl said the first thing he noticed was that she was the prettiest thing he had ever seen in his life. They married 2 years later, in 1966, during a small ceremony with very few guests. Carl preferred life away from public attention. He worked as a road paving contractor, avoided interviews, and spent decades staying out of the spotlight. While Dolly built an incredible career across music, television, and film, Carl stayed grounded at home. He took care of the farm, enjoyed his books, and gave Dolly the freedom to chase her dreams. Their bond remained strong for nearly 6 decades. They spent 58 years together. When Carl Dean passed away on March 3, 2025, at age 82, Dolly faced one of the most difficult chapters of her life. The loss reached far beyond heartbreak and affected many parts of her daily life. Throughout much of 2025, Dolly kept pushing forward. That had always been her way. No matter what obstacles appeared, she found a reason to keep going. But eventually, the body demands attention. By the summer of 2025, health challenges began becoming harder to ignore. It started with kidney stones, something she had experienced before. This time, however, recovery was more complicated. The discomfort eased, but other issues lingered. After months of grief and stress, her immune system struggled. Soon, her digestive system began causing problems as well. The systems that had helped carry her through 60 years of non-stop work.
Awesome.
Well, we did a pretty good job of it. Dollywood, they really got some wonderful people putting things together here. And then I had my team out of Nashville working on it as well. We used to have a museum where we had all of our artifacts and all. Then we thought, well, we need something bigger. We need something.
were now signaling that it was time to slow down and rest. In September 2025, Dolly Parton publicly revealed for the first time that health issues were affecting her plans. She announced that her Las Vegas residency at the Coliseum at Caesar's Palace, originally scheduled for December 2025, would be postponed. The official explanation was health challenges, but few details were shared. Dolly chose her words carefully, staying positive while avoiding specifics about how serious things might be. Fans respected her privacy, but many could tell something was different. The announcement immediately sparked concern across her loyal fan base. Then, in October 2025, another moment drew even more attention. Dolly's sister, Frida Parton, shared a social media post saying she had spent the entire night praying for Dolly's health. The message felt personal and emotional, and it spread online at incredible speed. Within hours, people everywhere were talking about it. As often happens online, speculation quickly followed. Rumors spread across social media, and many people began guessing about Dolly's condition. Concern grew far beyond what any official statement had suggested. Dolly addressed the situation just days later. In an Instagram video, she appeared upbeat, energetic, and eager to calm fears. She told fans she was not as sick as many people believed, that she was still working hard, and that she was doing okay. Then she added a caption that sounded exactly like Dolly. "I ain't dead yet." The message brought relief to many fans. They laughed, smiled, and felt reassured because Dolly had always been known for being straightforward with her audience. But despite her positive attitude, signs of ongoing health concerns continued to appear. In November 2025, she missed the Hall of Fame ceremony hosted by the International Association of Amusement Parks and Attractions, where Dollywood was being honored. Doctors had advised her to take things easy. She also missed the announcement of a new Dollywood attraction and stayed away from touring and live performances. For someone who had spent most of her life performing, that absence was impossible to ignore. As 2026 began, a pattern was becoming harder to dismiss. Dolly wasn't making dramatic announcements, but the growing gaps between her public appearances were telling their own story. Something was changing behind the scenes, slowly and carefully, in ways only Dolly and her doctors fully understood. Then came March 2026, the moment she became more open than she had been in a long time. For months, Dolly had shared updates that were reassuring but limited. She stayed positive, kept her privacy, and avoided discussing too many details. But during the opening day of Dollywood's 2026 season, standing in the park she helped create in the Tennessee mountains she calls home, something felt different. She wasn't reading from prepared remarks or carefully managing every word. Instead, she spoke from the heart. What followed became one of her most personal public moments in years. During her keynote speech, Dolly explained that she had not been touring and had been dealing with several health challenges. She thanked her team for helping take care of her. At first, the comments sounded like a routine update. Then she began talking about Carl Dean. Dolly shared that the previous year had been unlike anything she had ever experienced. Losing the man she spent nearly 6 decades with had affected her more deeply than she expected. She believed she would grieve and continue moving forward, just as she always had. But grief proved far more powerful than she imagined. She explained that the loss left her feeling worn down, not only emotionally but physically as well. The exhaustion stayed with her, affecting daily life in ways that were difficult to ignore. It wasn't the kind of tiredness that disappears after a few days of rest. It lingered and demanded attention. Dolly told the crowd that grief had impacted her whole life, and that she needed time to rebuild herself emotionally, spiritually, and physically. At 80 years old, she was facing several challenges at once, yet she still stood before the audience, smiling, laughing, and connecting with fans. Even in a serious moment, her famous sense of humor remained intact. Standing beside Dollywood president Eugene Norton, Dolly joked that people should not mistake him for a new husband. She quickly added that she had no plans to start dating again, drawing laughs from the crowd and showing that her spark was still very much alive. Then Dolly said something that quietly stunned the room. She shared that she believed Carl Dean was waiting for her and joked that if she arrived at the pearly gates with someone else on her arm, he probably would not be happy about it. She laughed in that familiar Dolly way, but the Emotion behind her words was impossible to miss. This wasn't the larger-than-life superstar people had watched for decades. This was an 80-year-old woman speaking openly about the loss of the man she had loved for nearly her entire adult life. 14 months after his passing, she was still carrying that grief while continuing to show up for her fans. The audience responded with a standing ovation. It wasn't simply for her career, her music, or everything she had built. It was for her honesty. It was for having the courage to stand before thousands of people and essentially say, "I was broken, I am rebuilding, and I am still here." Then, on May 4th, 2026, almost 1 year after Carl's death, Dolly recorded a simple video message that quickly reached millions of viewers. There was no major production, no elaborate setup, and no attempt to make it look polished. It was just Dolly speaking directly to her audience, exactly the way she always has. In the video, she said she had both good news and bad news. The good news was that her treatments and medications were helping. She explained that she was improving, feeling stronger, and working closely with doctors she trusted. Most importantly, she stressed that the health issues she was facing were treatable and manageable. Then she shared the difficult part. Recovery was taking longer than she hoped. While the treatments were helping, some medications were causing dizziness. Using one of her grandmother's old expressions, Dolly said she felt swimmy-headed. With her usual humor, she explained why returning to the stage immediately wasn't realistic. She joked that trying to perform while feeling dizzy, carrying instruments, and walking around in 5-inch heels was not exactly a winning combination. Even while discussing serious health challenges, Dolly found a way to keep people smiling, proving that her trademark charm was still shining through. Not to mention, Dolly added with a laugh, all those heavy rhinestone outfits and the big hair, along with what she called her larger-than-life personality. The Las Vegas residency was officially cancelled, but what really got people talking wasn't the cancellation itself. It was the unforgettable way she described her condition. Dolly compared herself to an old classic car. She explained that when her doctors raised the hood, they found more problems than expected. What sounded like a joke quickly turned into one of the most memorable health updates she has ever given. According to Dolly, the engine needed work, the transmission wasn't running smoothly, the oil pan was leaking, the muffler had issues, even the shocks and pistons needed attention. Then came the line that instantly spread across social media. She said, "Because you know as well as I know that I cannot lose my spark." For many fans, that single sentence captured everything Dolly Parton has always represented. It wasn't just a funny remark. It reflected a lifetime of determination. She came from humble beginnings, built an extraordinary career, faced personal heartbreak, and now found herself dealing with health challenges that could no longer be pushed aside. Through it all, her focus remained the same, keeping that spark alive. Dolly also spoke openly about her immune and digestive systems. She explained that complications related to kidney stones over the previous 2 years had left both systems struggling. Her medical team was working to help restore her strength and improve her overall health. What surprised many people was what she discussed next. Even while dealing with grief, recovery, and medication-related dizziness, she continued talking about future projects. She mentioned work connected to her Broadway musical, her Nashville museum and hotel plans, new music, and ongoing video projects. Despite everything she was facing, she was still creating and moving forward. Dolly has chosen not to publicly share a specific diagnosis, and that decision belongs entirely to her. Still, the information she has provided paints a picture many families understand. The kidney stone complications, immune system problems, digestive issues, dizziness, and months of exhaustion all point to someone managing several challenges at once. What Dolly has been describing isn't one isolated problem. It's a combination of physical recovery, emotional healing, and the realities that can come after a period of intense loss and stress. Sometimes, health challenges do not come from a single issue. They happen when several problems arrive at the same time, and after decades of non-stop activity, the body starts demanding attention. That appears to be part of what Dolly Parton has been facing recently. One factor she has discussed is her history with kidney stones. While kidney stones are often treatable, recurring episodes can become more complicated over time. Repeated issues may place additional strain on the body and can lead to longer recovery periods, especially when other health concerns are present. Then there is the impact of grief. Medical researchers have spent years studying how major loss can affect physical health. The effects are not limited to emotions alone. Losing someone who has been part of your daily life for nearly 60 years can place enormous stress on both the mind and body. During periods of prolonged grief, stress levels may remain elevated for extended stretches of time. Sleep patterns can be disrupted, energy levels can drop, and the immune system may not function as effectively as usual. Stress can also affect digestion and overall well-being, creating challenges that extend far beyond emotional pain. Dolly lost Carl Dean on March 3, 2025. In the months that followed, she publicly shared that both her immune and digestive systems were struggling. While only her medical team knows the full picture, the timing highlights how multiple factors can sometimes overlap and create larger health obstacles. Age is another important part of the story. At 80 years old, Dolly has spent more than 6 decades maintaining a workload that many people would find difficult at any age. Her career has included touring, recording music, managing business ventures, supporting charitable projects, and constantly developing new creative ideas. Even while facing personal loss and health concerns, she continued discussing future projects and staying involved in her work. That level of commitment has been part of her identity for years. Based on what Dolly has shared, her doctors appear focused on helping her recover in several areas at once. The goal is not simply addressing one symptom, but improving her overall health, managing medication side effects, strengthening key systems, and helping her regain energy safely. As Dolly's own classic car comparison suggested, this is less about a quick repair and more about a careful rebuild designed to get everything running as smoothly as possible again. Recovery takes time. It is often slow, demanding, and far from glamorous. For someone like Dolly Parton, who has spent nearly her entire life moving from one project to the next, slowing down may be one of the biggest challenges she has ever faced. Rest, patience, and recovery require a different kind of strength. What often gets overlooked in discussions about Dolly's health is that she has not stepped away from her work. She is not disappearing from public life or putting everything on hold. In many ways, she remains deeply involved in some of the biggest creative projects of her career. Think about the situation. The same woman who cancelled her Las Vegas residency because of health concerns is also working on major projects while managing recovery. Even with physical limitations, she continues finding ways to stay active and connected to the work she loves. At 80 years old, Dolly is balancing treatment, recovery, and personal loss, while still developing new ideas. Many people would have chosen to step back long ago. Instead, she continues looking ahead and planning for the future. One of her largest projects is the Broadway musical Dolly. The production is expected to open in New York later in 2026, depending on final schedules. Dolly has made it clear that she is not simply lending her name to the project. She remains actively involved in shaping the music, story, and overall vision. The musical carries special importance because it introduces her life story to new audiences. While many younger people recognize her name, they may not know the full journey from growing up in poverty in rural Tennessee to becoming one of the most successful entertainers in the world. Another major focus is her long-awaited Nashville Museum and Hotel project. Years in development, the project is now moving closer to completion. For Dolly, this is about much more than creating another attraction. Nashville changed her life. It was the city where she arrived at 18 years old with little more than determination, talent, and a dream. Building a permanent space that celebrates that journey holds deep personal meaning. Rather than being a simple tribute to her success, the project reflects the story of where she came from, what she achieved, and the path that brought her to this point. Even while facing health challenges, Dolly continues working to bring that vision to life. For Dolly Parton, the Nashville Museum and Hotel project represents a full-circle moment. The journey that began in a small one-room cabin beside the Little Pigeon River has led to a place where her story can be preserved and shared for future generations. At the same time, she continues making music. Even during recovery, new songs are being written and recorded. Songwriting has never been just a profession for Dolly. It has always been a core part of who she is. Over the years, she has often said that melodies arrive at unexpected moments, sometimes waking her in the middle of the night until she writes them down. That creative spark has not disappeared. If anything, it remains one of the constants in her life, even while she works through health challenges. The music continues because creating has always been second nature to her. Meanwhile, Dollywood keeps moving forward. The park, which opened in 1986 and carries her name, has become one of the most successful attractions in Tennessee. It supports thousands of jobs and continues to grow in the same region where Dolly spent her childhood. Now, in its 41st season, it remains one of the most visible parts of her legacy. Looking at everything she is still doing raises an interesting question. It is not whether she will recover. Based on her public comments, she remains optimistic and focused on getting stronger. The bigger question is whether she will allow herself the amount of rest that recovery truly requires. After all, developing a Broadway musical is not exactly taking it easy. Neither is opening a museum, recording music, or managing multiple projects at once. Dolly has spent decades moving forward at an extraordinary pace, and slowing down has never seemed to come naturally to her. What makes this story important is that it goes beyond a simple health update. It highlights the demands that can come after a lifetime of constant work, creativity, and responsibility. For more than 60 years, Dolly has poured energy into her music, businesses, charitable efforts, and fans. One of the clearest examples is the Imagination Library, the literacy program she launched in 1995. Since then, it has delivered more than 200 million books to children across 14 countries, becoming one of the most meaningful parts of her lasting impact on the world. Dolly's impact reaches far beyond music. Through Dollywood, she helped create jobs, attract tourism, and bring new opportunities to a region she has always loved. She also spent decades supporting musicians, writers, crew members, and creative people who often needed someone willing to believe in them. For years, she kept giving, helping, and building opportunities for others. But one question often goes unasked. Who was helping restore her energy when she needed it most? For much of her adult life, Carl Dean played that role. While Dolly lived in the spotlight, Carl remained the steady presence at home. He never chased fame and never seemed interested in public attention. Instead, he supported the person behind the public image. For 58 years, Carl knew the difference between Dolly the global superstar and Dolly the woman. He loved her away from the cameras, away from the stage, and away from the headlines. That kind of support became an important foundation in her life. When Carl passed away in 2025, Dolly lost more than a husband. She lost a partner who had been part of her daily world for nearly 6 decades. Publicly, she continued moving forward, but the loss clearly left a lasting impact. The challenges she has described since then reflect both physical recovery and the emotional weight that followed such a significant change. Many people see the success, the awards, and the accomplishments. What is easier to miss are the demands that come with carrying those responsibilities for decades. A life spent giving to others can be rewarding, but it can also be exhausting. At 80 years old, Dolly has spoken openly about balancing grief, recovery, medication side effects, and major creative projects all at the same time. Yet she continues facing those challenges with the humor and warmth that have defined her career. Her classic car comparison made people smile, but it also revealed something deeper about where she is in life right now. Behind the jokes is someone learning how to accept help after spending years being the person others depended on. That may be one of the most difficult adjustments she has ever faced. Recovery requires trust, patience, and a willingness to let others provide support when it is needed. One moment from Dolly's May 2026 Instagram video captured that reality perfectly. After describing herself as an old classic car needing repairs, she paused briefly and then said, "Because you know as well as I know that I cannot lose my spark." It was a simple statement, but it resonated with millions of people. More than a comment about health, it sounded like a promise. No matter what challenges she faces, no matter how long recovery takes, Dolly remains determined to protect the spirit, optimism, and resilience that have carried her through every chapter of her remarkable life. 3 seconds, 1 sentence, a lifetime of wisdom packed into a single moment. That is what Dolly Parton gave the world when she spoke about not losing her spark. She wasn't standing on a huge stage. There were no bright lights, no sold-out crowd, and no band playing behind her. It was just Dolly, speaking honestly through a phone camera while dealing with recovery, treatment, and the heartbreak of losing the man she loved for nearly 60 years. What Dolly is showing people right now goes far beyond a health update. She is reminding us that slowing down is not the same as giving up. Taking time to heal does not mean the journey is over. Sometimes the strongest thing a person can do is accept help, rest when needed, and allow themselves the time to recover. Would you give yourself permission to slow down if someone like Dolly told you it was okay? Let us know with a simple yes or no in the comments below. From a one-room cabin in Tennessee to becoming one of the most recognized entertainers in the world, Dolly's story has always been extraordinary. She arrived in Nashville at 18 with little more than talent, determination, and a dream. She built a career that changed music history, created opportunities for countless people, helped transform her home region through Dollywood, and donated more than 200 million books to children around the world. She also shared a remarkable love story with Carl Dean, a man who stayed by her side for nearly 6 decades. Today, while continuing to process that loss, she is still creating, still dreaming, and still working on new projects. From a Broadway musical to new music and major developments in Nashville, Dolly keeps moving forward despite the challenges she has faced. The truth is simple: the spark never disappeared. The health struggles, the grief, and the setbacks may have slowed things down, but they did not take away the determination that has defined her entire life. Dolly Parton's story reminds us that even the strongest people need time to heal. Even the brightest lights need care and attention. And even legends are allowed to be human. Dolly is not fading away. She is rebuilding, recovering, and preparing for whatever comes next. If her incredible journey has taught us anything, it is that resilience has always been one of her greatest gifts. If this story touched you, leave a tribute or favorite Dolly memory in the comments below. And don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with someone who loves Dolly Parton.